Welcome back, everybody. This is part 2 in my time-lapse build of the Tamiya 148 scale Mosquito Night Fighter. Now in this video, we're going to see the kit go from primer straight through paint into the completion. I will starting with the paint. If you want to see everything up to the primer stage, down below in the description, you'll see a link to part 1. If you haven't seen it yet, jump over there, and that shows that whole progression from box to primer. And as I said, this video will be paint to completion. And on that note, let's jump right into this. We can see the building or the finishing of this 148 scale Mosquito. And as always, my name is Sean, and this is Sean's Aviation. So here we are with the Mosquito. Now that it is painted, I'm going to seal it with the gloss coat, which is just the Future Floor Wax. Not sure what it's called today. It's changed names a few times. And I do need to buy some, so I'll have to figure out what it is called so I know what I'm looking for when I'm shopping either in the stores or online. It used to be called Future Floor Wax, then it was pledged with Future Shine. Again, not sure what it's called now. I like this clear coat. I have never airbrushed it. I've only ever brushed it on. And it's easy to go on. It settles nicely into any of the panel lines. It dries relatively quickly. You can apply coats over top. It will fog if you apply a second coat on top of the first coat, but that will eventually settle out as it dries. And I found it to be relatively stable. The stuff I'm using now, I've had for many, many years, over 10, I would say over 15 years in the bottle, and it has held up. It hasn't degraded at all as well. There's a few models I have that I've used it on. There's a couple I've kept in a gloss scheme, and I've used this as the sealant. And it's been, you know, close to a decade, and there isn't any type of yellowing or discoloration. Being a floor wax, it tends to be UV stable, so it won't yellow in the sun or anything like that over time, as far as I can tell. Now, I haven't let it sit for 25, 30 years, but definitely in the 10 or so that I've seen, it doesn't seem to react. So I like it. Everybody has their own personal preference. Right now, this is my jam. I like it. It's easy to apply. And like I said, it settles out nicely. So I'm going to finish these wings. Once I'm done, I'm going to let the wings dry before I do the fuselage. So I'll come back and do the rest of this once these wings are dry. And then I'll get this thing gloss coated. And then eventually we'll get around to getting the decals done. So there we go. So here we are with the Mosquito. I'm at kind of a milestone stage, and that milestone stage is that it is painted, it is gloss coats, it has been gloss coated. I also have the landing gear. They're not glued in, they're just sitting there. It just allows me to put the model down on its wheels. Plus it looks so cool sitting on its wheels. So I just it also means the landing gear aren't gonna get broken or anything by accidentally hitting them. I just realized I pulled all the masking out earlier and I never pulled out the ones out of the radiators. Oh, that looks so good. Just enough weathering in there to make it look good. Anyways, next steps for this, basically decals. It is ready for decals, and then I can seal the decals, do a little bit of weathering, not lots, just a little bit of weathering. and then start assembling things, flat coat, and start doing all the little details. So I mean, this still has a few things I got to do. The landing gear still need the oil tanks mounted to them. Props and spinners need to be assembled. Antennas need to be put on. Tail wheel has to be glued in. There's still some details inside the bomb bay I got to do. I got to paint the guns a little bit of a darker color and weather them. I got to pull the masking out of the opening and then get all that put together. So next steps on this, the big ones for me are going to be the decals. Shouldn't take long with the decals. It's I have a thumbprint embedded in that. Why do I have a thumbprint embedded in that? Oh, I got a lot of thumbprints embedded in this. What happened to that? I wonder, can I just polish that out, or is that... I may have picked it up with a... I may have picked this up when it had, before the future completely dried. There's a bunch of thumbprints everywhere. Although it might just be from now. I'm hoping it's just for me picking up now, and I got a little bit of oil on my thumbprint, and I can wipe that off with some alcohol. Anyways, decals. I gotta get the decals done. I also want to work on the exhausts. The exhausts on this particular kit are going to be the flame dampening exhausts, which you see here. My plan for those, I'm going to paint them alclad. Same time I paint the two F82s alclad. So base coat of alclad, so gloss black, then alclad, I don't know, stainless steel or something. Then alclad, it's like an aluminum or a weathering exhaust, burnt exhaust or exhaust staining or something along those lines. Paint that, seal it. Then I'm going to paint it the same color that I painted this airframe, which is how they would have been off the kit. And then I'll go through with either some sandpaper or a cotton swab with some alcohol, and I'll try to wipe the paint off the back side of this, so it looks like the black paint has been burning off the exhaust, and you start to see the metallic look coming up from underneath. So that's my plan for the exhaust on these, and there's multiple steps. There's gloss black, alclad weathering, alclad sealing, and then the black, and then the weathering. So I want to get that process started soon, so I can poke away at it and step by step and work my way through. And then at the end, I'm not rushing. So get those done. And then as well, as soon as I'm done decals with the gloss coat, I can go ahead with the weathering, and I can start doing the exhaust staining and making sure that looks good, and then fitting those exhaust stacks. Now, the one thing I didn't check, which I should have, yeah, I still have to do the normal exhausts as well. So I'm going to have to get those normal exhausts all at the same time with the alclad. So there's going to be a lot of alclad all being painted at once, so I want to get that done. But anyways, it's coming along good. It looks really, really good. I'm very excited to start getting to the next steps. So yeah, decals and poking away at the exhausts. And on that note, let's get back at it, and I'll check in later. So you'll see here as I'm finishing up the decals, I'm going along with a pin and I'm just popping any bubbles that have formed in some of the larger decals, which tends to happen over things like rivets and panel lines and stuff like that. And then once that's done, I give the entire model another gloss coat just to ensure those decals are really, really settled in there. And there's a nice hard layer underneath and on top, which limits any chance of scratching or those decals lifting down the line. And then once that's done, I hit it with a flat coat. I just use the standard Vallejo matte finish, hit it with that, and then you'll see here I can start pulling off the masking and all that kind of stuff, and it's making it look like a finished model. So we're getting close to the end, and then after that it's just some fiddly bits. Just a quick kind of status update on where we are with this kit. So, I mean, as you've been watching, I got a lot done. I didn't do any type of black wash weathering on this post decals, but I did do some exhaust staining down the side, just a hint of exhaust staining on this, and then flat coat, and I've pulled the masking. You would have just seen me with the landing gear. I got the oil tanks done. They still have to be weathered. I'm going to add some black wash to those. Ooh, what happened there? Weird. Anyways, I'm going to add a little bit of black wash to this in a little bit here. Just to those oil tanks, just to dirty them up. What I'm going to work on now is the exhaust. So I've got the actual exhausts here. They've been painted alclad. Stainless steel with a bit of alclad exhaust manifold just to darken it up. These are the covers that cover them. So they were painted same thing, alclad stainless steel, and then just the back end where the exhaust comes out, I painted it with a little bit of exhaust manifold. But what I'm going to do now, and then I brush painted on some of the Panzer Dark Gray that I used on the rest of the airframe. And I got myself a little bit of isopropyl alcohol here. And what I'm going to do is just start wiping off some of this paint. And I'm going to do it in a bit of a semicircle. So down the middle here, I'll have more paint missing. And down to the bottom, I'll have a bit more. And at the top, I'll have less. And the idea is that I'm trying to recreate anyways, is that the heat of the exhaust stacks that sit behind this, right? The heat of that exhaust has heated up the metal and has caused the paint to flake and come off of this rear section. So obviously the rear as well as the bottom would be hotter than the top. So I'm just going to go through here with this isopropyl alcohol and just try to wipe off some of this paint and just darken it up, or sorry, not darken it up, just wear the paint, make it look like a natural wear pattern that the paint has naturally faded and come off. I've actually never done anything like this before. This is the first time I've done anything like this. And if I do say so myself, I think that looks pretty good. So the Alclad underneath, obviously it's a lacquer, and I've put a lacquer clear of the Alclad clear on it. So yeah, as I was saying before, the clear coat I put on top of the Alclad clear coat that I put on top of the Alclad protects the underlying metallic paint from the upper paint as well as the alcohol. So now you can see when this gets mounted in place, something like that. It looks like I still have a little bit of work to do on it. It's not perfect. But it definitely looks like the paint was worn off, and yeah. Anyways, it clearly looks like the paint has faded off, has come off, and it's no longer the metallic undertones is coming out around the end where the exhaust would come out, which is kind of what the look I was looking for. I'll zoom in here a little bit so you get a good look. I'm just going to get rid of those. So I'll zoom in and you'll be able to take a look at what I'm talking about here. So you can see how the paint is on the front, it's not on the back. And if I find the right side, you can see the exhaust stains there. There's still the actual exhaust piece to go in, but you can see that when that is mounted in place, it looks like the rear half, the paint has faded off the rear half the way you would normally with that kind of heat and whatnot in use. So that's the look I'm going for. So we'll see how it turns out. While I'm zoomed in, you can get a good look at just what this Mosquito looks like right now, the detailing up inside the cockpit. And then the wheel well, which I'm going to work on right now. I got to get the flat coat on the wheels. So I'm just going to dump these in there so I don't lose them. And on this time up point, I'm going to widen back out again, and we'll jump over and I'll start weathering those landing gears a bit more. And here I start working on the props. You'll see I paint the tips with a base coat of white, and then I go ahead and hit it with the yellow tips the way it would normally would. And then I get the props all assembled and get ready to start gluing those onto the plane. And here you'll see I start getting towards the end of the kit, and I start having to deal with all the little parts that I've not dealt with yet and left to the end. Here it starts with the Bombay door actuators. I get them glued in, and then I paint them the interior green color, and then I paint them the silver color. Then I just start, gluing in landing gear, gluing on gear doors, gluing on bay doors, all those little things, again, that I've left off to the end to ensure things don't get broken. So here we are at the end of the build for this Mosquito, and yeah, it's done. It looks great. It's a Tamiya kit, so it's really hard to screw it up. The hardest part of this kit, in all honesty, was getting these little wingtip antennas on. They didn't really want to line up. They're still off a little tiny bit. They're not quite perfectly parallel and straight, but I've also probably knocked them a few times doing work on the kit, so. Anyways, other than feeding those through, the rest of this kit, they just falls together. It's super easy to assemble. The instructions are easy. The decals are great. Everything you see on this kit right now is out of the box. Everything's kit decals. I use the decal seat belts inside, and they look great. Just did some good weathering and everything and made it look decent. Some post shading, some pre shading, and whatnot to make it look good. So it's a great kit. Highly recommend this to anybody who wants a 1/48 scale Mosquito. The only downside is kind of the usual issue you have with Tamiya decals. They don't really like to settle very well, and they tend to bubble and crack, and especially along this side here where they have this strengthening line that runs down the side of the fuselage, there's some cracking of the decal in the seam. That's just the way Tamiya decals are. You learn to live with it. But overall, I love it. It settled down really well. It looks great. All the decals look good. I mean, it looks really good. I've got the glass nose bomber version I built many, many years ago. So to have the two Mosquitoes sitting side by side on the shelf is going to be really cool. I'm looking forward to seeing that, what do you call it? Comparison of the two kits sitting side by side. Anyways, so that's that, and yeah, we'll move on to the next round of kits. As I mentioned in the other time lapse, if you haven't seen the end of those, keep an eye out on my monthly What's on My Desk updates. I will introduce the next round of kits, and you can follow along the progress on that until I get those time lapse completed. So that will wrap up the build of this Mosquito. As always, if you have any questions, concerns, anything like that, down below, comment down below, hit me up on Facebook or anything like that. Let me know what questions you have. If there's anything you need to do with the build, I will gladly give you any of my nuggets of wisdom that I picked up during the build. And on that note, let's wrap it up. Thank you for everyone who's lasted this long in this video, and we'll see you all next time.